Hi, and welcome to Pearl Magazine. As the debate on whether or not e-cigarettes and other alternative smoking devices should be regulated in Hong Kong gathers steam, studies over the relative safety or harmfulness compared to traditional cigarettes are piling up.
Big Tobacco has declared their desire to clean up the stench around cigarettes by developing alternative smoking devices. And new companies have jumped on the bandwagon to take advantage of the growing e-cigarette market as the fire starts to fizzle over tobacco.
So, Mel, have you noticed that more people are vaping or smoking e-cigarettes out in the streets of Hong Kong?
There are a few, but actually I still see most people smoking traditional cigarettes.
Maybe that's because e-cigarettes just aren't really regulated here in Hong Kong.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the government had wanted to ban them years ago, and recently, last June, they came out stating their intention to regulate.
Well, let's take a look now at the issues surrounding the heirs to the tobacco market.
Yeah, berries and banana flavor. Popular. This brand is popular with everyone. Yeah, that's really good, that one. Yeah.
This customer is looking for a flavor he can smoke, or more accurately, vape, a term coined for those who use e-cigarettes. The modern e-cigarette was invented in 2003 by a Chinese pharmacist, and to this day most are made in China. An electronic device, it simulates smoking. It works by heating up liquid, usually containing nicotine, and creating an aerosol or vapor that the user inhales. Supporters of the device claim they are safer than traditional cigarettes because the combustion or fire has been taken out of the equation. Without lighting up the nicotine, there is no tar, the most cancer-causing constituent of cigarettes. But long-term effects are still unknown. Since 2014, there have been numerous studies on the devices. As global cigarette smoking has dropped steadily since 2005, the e-cigarette market has grown to an estimated $15 billion and is expected to grow at 27% annually between 2018 and 2023. Joe Martin started smoking cigarettes when he was 11 years old. The 23-year-old switched to e-cigarettes 5 years ago.
My mother's side, she was a smoker. I saw all the older kids, years above, smoking. And at the time, it seemed cool to me. I wanted to be that rebel, and I wanted an in with the older children.
Joe says by the time he was 17, he was smoking 1 to 2 packs of cigarettes a day.
If I had a beer in my hand, cigarette just went alongside it.
When he hit 21, he was practically breathing cigarettes, smoking 60 to 80 sticks a day. What drove you to smoke so much?
In the January of 2016, I lost my mum to cancer. And it affected me really badly, and it just increased my smoking.
He then decided to try e-cigarettes, but found he couldn't stick to them exclusively and smoked traditional cigarettes as well. He says he realized the nicotine level he was using in his e-cigarette liquid, 3 milligrams, wasn't enough for a heavy smoker like himself. So, on the advice of another vapor, he upped the level to 18 milligrams.
I went from a 3 up to an 18 and realized dramatically how much that helped with not wanting to smoke cigarettes. It stopped my cravings. I have dramatically reduced my level of problems with my lungs, my heart, my throat.
Joe isn't alone in believing e-cigarettes are less harmful than traditional cigarettes. Studies by Public Health England, the UK government's executive agency in the Department of Health and Social Care, have shown that e-cigarettes are 95% safer than traditional tobacco cigarettes. They have had 4 studies since 2014 and continue to test them.
PHE has used the figure of 95% less harmful. And that's based on a kind of the available evidence on a whole range of things, including harm to the user, the risk of fire. The National Academy of Sciences, the American Cancer Society, and the US Public Health Annual Review all conclude that on the available evidence, e-cigarettes are far less harmful than smoking.
The American Cancer Society's statement on e-cigarettes encourages smokers unable to quit to switch to the least harmful form of tobacco. Some health experts disagree with the findings. To them, sweetening the smell of smoke and turning it into a vapor doesn't make it less dangerous.
This brings new risk, right? So the glycerin in these e-cigarettes, when they are heated to produce vapors, they contain formaldehyde, which is carcinogenic.
Formaldehyde is also found in regular cigarettes, building materials, stoves, and household products. A 2015 study by the Portland State University in the U.S. showed e-cigarettes had new forms of formaldehydes. However, the manner of the study was questioned because it involved heating the e-cigarette to very high levels.
If you crank up the power so that the vapor is so hot no human being could tolerate it, then or if you expose, imagine that you have to inhale for 15, 20 minutes at a time, of course it's going to be harmful.
Professor Daniel Ho says because these new products are so different from traditional cigarettes, it's impossible to predict their long-term risk.
But these vapors are generally considered as safe when ingested. They're not meant for being inhaled after being heated. The effect on the body is difficult to predict. And for these new products, the diseases may also be new.
Another study conducted by the Hong Kong Baptist University identified a new ingredient being given off by e-cigarettes, PBDE, a flame retardant used in electrical devices. This can be found in our phones, computers, copying machines, anything that's plastic and electrical. Professor Shanshan Chung, who conducted the study, says it's an endocrine disruptor.
Studies proving that the level of PBDE in household dust, indoor dust, is also high. But you won't ingest dust, right? Knowingly. For e-cigarette aerosol, you directly inhale them.
While she says not all the 13 samples tested had high levels of PBDEs, the important thing was that they had been identified. The study was commissioned by the Hong Kong Council on Smoking and Health, or COSH. COSH asked you to do this study. Was it to prove their point also that e-cigarettes are dangerous?
What I know of for sure is that we have a contract and they specify the chemicals that we need to test. And except that our experimental setup deliberately intensify the generation of aerosol.
Rather than mimic human behavior, Dr. Chung says the devices were puffed on mechanically for 4.5 seconds, followed by a 1 to 2 second break, then another 4.5 seconds of puffing, and so on for 12 minutes.
If the puff regime is too light, the chemicals that you are targeting may not be generated to the extent that you can measure it.
Dr. Chung says that mimicking human behavior might have turned up no PBDEs. She also acknowledges in her report that devices like face steamers and baby nebulizers might also be giving off these harmful chemicals. She says to assess the health impact of e-cigarettes fairly, comparing the new technology to traditional cigarettes may not be the right approach.
Traditional tobacco products and e-cigarettes, they are quite different in the sense that they generate quite different spectrum of harmful chemicals.
Daniel Ho agrees, saying prevention in the form of a ban is the best way to go.
New diseases is going to come up, and then it will be too late when a major part of the population has been using these e-cigarettes.
And yet, there is a move in the UK to make e-cigarettes a medical device to help people quit smoking. In 2013, GlaxoSmithKline wanted e-cigarettes to be classified as medical devices.
At the moment, all our manufacturers have a choice. They can either go through the consumer route, which almost all of them have, or they can try and get their product regulated as a medicine. Now, the safety standards are much, much higher for medicines. But with that responsibility comes some privileges.
In the UK, this would include a lower tax rate, no need for health warnings on the packaging, and the ability to advertise it.
We have one that's got through the process, but the company has not brought it to market yet because they haven't worked out how they can make any money from it. But my hunch is that within a year, we will probably see a couple of products on the market.
And if standards are raised with a medically certified e-cigarette, there's the possibility consumer confidence in e-cigarettes as a whole will be boosted.
Well, I can certainly see why there's such a heated debate over these devices.
Exactly, and both sides have good arguments, but the real question is, how do you regulate them? More on that after the break. Welcome back. There are many players in the alternative smoking market, from manufacturers and vendors to medical groups and legislators.
The two main issues that keep coming up when it comes to regulation are health and our youth.
These are the same issues that have hounded traditional tobacco, and they're definitely issues that need to be addressed.
Let's take a look now at what those in the Quit Smoking program say about regulation and if those who support it have a viable case.
The Tonghua Group of Hospitals Smoking Cessation Pilot Scheme runs this outreach program 3 times a week in various parts of Hong Kong. Mrs. Wan joined the program almost 2 months ago. At 62, she says she's been smoking for over 30 years.
30 years ago, I thought that the woman who smoked is very trendy and charming, but now it's very stupid. All I get is the bad smells, the unfriendly reasons and voices, so it's not a good experience, I think.
Last year, she received a heat-not-burn device as a gift. Its manufacturer claims it's up to 90% safer than traditional cigarettes. It works by heating up a small tobacco stick and, following the same logic e-cigarette supporters cite, makes them less harmful. Where there is no fire, there is no smoke, just vapor. But because these devices are banned here, Mrs. Wan had difficulty buying the tobacco sticks, and eventually, she says, it malfunctioned, so she went back to smoking cigarettes. Using medicine to suppress her nicotine cravings, she's also trying to adopt a healthier lifestyle. She says that while the smell of the heat-not-burn device was weaker, she doesn't think they're safer.
I think it's another trap for the people.
But Philip Morris International, who make heat-not-burn devices, say they're at least 90% safer than their own traditional cigarettes. So how long has your company been developing these products for?
For around about 20 years. We started originally because we know that smoking is harmful, and so we're trying to develop products that can be potentially reduced risk compared to smoking cigarettes.
The company has invested $4.5 billion developing 4 new devices. So far, only 2 products are available.
We've also spent a lot more money in terms of changing over our factories and our facilities that used to make cigarettes and now are making reduced risk products instead.
He says his company's ultimate goal is to take cigarettes off the shelves for good and replace them with these.
They're not cessation devices, they're tobacco products for people who choose to smoke.
He cites a World Health Organization report that predicts there will be a constant number of about 1.1 billion smokers worldwide for the next 20 years. In 2017, the Japanese National Institute of Public Health did their own study on the devices and concluded that the harmful substances generated by them are significantly lower than traditional cigarettes. In Japan, 68% have switched to using heat-not-burn devices exclusively.
Around about 5 million people have already switched globally.
But Daniel Ho doesn't buy the argument that the devices are targeted at converting smokers.
For the company to survive, and the aim is not just to survive, the aim is to grow, right? The business is about growth. They are not targeting people like me, because people after, say, 30 years old are very unlikely to start smoking, right? So their hopes are all on young people.
Others claim they and other e-cigarette manufacturers are targeting the youth with trendy products.
There's like 15,000 flavors. They are obviously designed to attract youngsters and those who don't already smoke to use the product.
And then we have the OS.
But Derek Quick, COO of Q Vapor, a U.S. e-cigarette company, says this isn't their market, and it's not the market with spending power.
The demographic, at least for our brand, is the 40 to 50-year-old. At this age, your health is becoming increasingly important, so you might be interested in joining a gym. You certainly eat healthier.
At this vape shop in Sayingpun, 27-year-old owner Tom McGrath says his clients range from their early 20s all the way to their 70s. A former musician, Tom quit smoking 5 years ago when he discovered e-cigarettes while living in Beijing.
I tried the nicotine gum, the patches, none of it which worked for me. And I was in China at the time and I walked past the vape shop and figured, well, I've tried everything else, may as well try this. And I quit pretty much instantly smoking.
It took him 3.5 years to go from 24 milligrams of nicotine to 0. He opened his shop after moving here. He says converting smokers became a kind of advocacy for him.
And I would tell all of my friends that smoked, I'm like, you got to try this. Helping them quit, I found the most rewarding.
Currently, e-cigarettes aren't regulated in Hong Kong. Last June, the government announced its intention to regulate them.
I think regulation can be good if it's done right. It maintains a standard of quality.
But Antonio Kwong wants a total ban on these devices, saying it's the attitude to the products that are the real danger.
I think one has to think about the impact of allowing another tobacco product, at the expense of a whole generation of youngsters who might take up the habit of smoking and renormalize their smoking behavior.
But some lawmakers have voted for the Hong Kong government's proposal to regulate the devices.
Government should know what we're doing, who's buying, who's selling, and get taxes out of it. As opposed to now people are buying overseas, bringing home, and you would have no clue. And customs will not be able to search every one of them.
Regulation would also mean having to conform to the quality standards of each country the devices are sold in.
Because these devices are going to only get safer, both from a regulatory point of view to the way that the products are designed and how they're used. Good factories, good manufacturers will have different things in place to offset those types of risks. There's always a risk when it comes to batteries, and that's not just for any factory.
In PMI's R&D center, each component is tested before going into distribution. Then this is
the battery itself, yeah. So they're just making sure that the battery is okay. How does it work in terms of the device, the charging that we're testing now. Then all the elements within the device, again, just to make sure it doesn't get over that 350 to 400 degrees Celsius. Yeah.
Helen Chan, supervisor of Tonghwa's smoking cessation services, says they're finding more patients using alternative smoking devices seeking help to quit.
In recent years, we find that some smokers will switch to the new novel tobacco products, you say e-cigarette or the heat-not-burn product. They will switch for a temporary period, but after that, they will definitely return to smoking ordinary cigarettes. Some of them have dual use.
This dual use is often cited as an argument that the devices aren't safer, but just offer another avenue to nicotine, compounding the danger of cigarettes. But is it really an issue that they're harder to access and cigarettes can be bought at virtually any street corner?
Anthony Colliard, a smoker who tried quitting using e-cigarettes, thinks so. He had quit using e-cigarettes for almost a month when he went on a business trip and forgot his liquid.
And I was on a business trip, I didn't have so much time. So, I just went to the easy option and just went to the first 7-Eleven and buy a pack of cigarettes.
He says that while he was vaping, he felt healthier. Exercise felt easier to him.
For example, if you smoke one cigarette before jogging, you will suffer. You will feel like it's very difficult to actually breathe. You smoke some vape a little bit before jogging, and then you go 5 minutes after, you don't feel anything.
Anthony has gone back to smoking cigarettes, saying it's too difficult to find the nicotine liquid he needs to help him quit smoking. Dr. Ching points out that in the UK, people wanting to quit through the national health system most likely have professional guidance when it comes to using e-cigarettes as a tool for cessation.
In real life, the people, they just buy the e-cigarette over the counter. There's no people control the dosage, the duration. From my point of view, I think I better to not allow this sort of product to run in the market.
Martin Dockrell of PHE disagrees.
We can take a step back and think, well, there are these hypothetical risks from e-cigarettes, but there are these very real known risks from smoking.
Tommy Chung thinks not allowing people a choice when it comes to tobacco is discrimination against minorities. The smoking minority stands at 10% of the population.
Sooner or later, cholesterol is bad for you. Sooner or later, sugar is bad for you. Sooner or later, even nuts, peanuts are bad. If we start banning things because government or politicians take a moral high ground and say this is not good for you. When Hong Kong people decided to get healthy, we will.
As the debate on the level of safety of these products continues to heat up, Hong Kong will have to decide if they should take a strong hand in telling its citizens what they can and can't have, or if they should give them a choice of what is currently seen as a safer option to smoking, while we wait for time and more science to confirm or refute the current data.
That's an issue that gets a lot more complicated when you start digging into it. Looks like it's going to be a tough call.
Yes, I think you're right. It will be. And we'll see if the cigarette industry gets vaporized or not. Anyway, that's our show for tonight. Thanks for joining us.
We're going to be gone for the next 2 weeks as TVB Pearl airs the Shaw Prize specials. Have a great week ahead. Bye for now.
Bye.